Ladies and germs, episode 267. We are here today with the title 400 New Affordable Units Gone. Why are they gone? I thought that was a thing the government was trying to implement. Well, it turns out not always. We've got three topics today. That is the first one. Over 400 affordable housing units in Surrey converted back to market homes. Point number one. Point number two, BC ponders short-term rental exemption. Would you look at that? I thought they wanted the short-term rentals gone. Maybe. And third, today is October 25th, and today is the interest rate announcement. Let's go. Number one, first of all, like, subscribe. We've got three topics today. If you have any input on any of these, please write below, comment to me, and we can chat about it. Today, originally reported by Daily Hive, there's a project called 104 Plaza Project in Surrey. So this was a three-towered project by Eco Developments, and what they were going to do, well, the title of this, which they have, is Surrey City Centre Project, no longer to be a model example of BC Housing's province-wide affordable home ownership program, otherwise known by the acronym of AHOP, okay? Due to challenging market conditions. So let's first underline of why are the market conditions challenging, and that will lead us into the narrative today. So this is a condo complex with three towers, 1,141 homes for these three towers in Surrey, and of course the BC Housing plan was to accompany 35% of all towers, which was 401 units, in the first phase of the three. Of course, they want all their flesh at the front end of the deal. We all remember the 8X development, Al, right on the park over here. There's, I believe, a Jubilee House behind them. The developer had to build the social housing building before starting on their own project. So the city's always going to get theirs first. This is no different. So they were slated for these 401 units in the first phase. So just a little highlight here. Going back to City Hall with previous zoning rescinded. So here's your zoning. It is now no more. 400 units will now go back and now be sold as normal housing, which has its own caveats tied to it. But what was this? So this was a proposed affordable middle income home plan. So I haven't heard of this before. Affordable middle income homes sold to select purchasers. Put your name on a list, give us criteria, and you may win the jackpot of one of the 400 rights to purchase. So middle income homes sold to select purchasers at fair market value with predetermined portions of the purchase price secured by a second mortgage facilitated by BC Housing with no interest, no payments for up to 25 years. So basically how this is working, you go and buy one of these places. This scheme, we'll call it, is applicable to these 400 units. So you want in, you get on the list, okay, you're selected, this is what it is. You put, let's say, 10% cash down. BC Housing will front you a 10% mortgage. And then 80% difference is by way of traditional mortgage. So really they're gifting you, if you will. There was a program similar to this a couple years ago that didn't take off and I believe has since been canceled. But this is a new attempt, gifting you 10%. BC Housing will take the mortgage out on your behalf and make all those obligatory.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
Payments for you on that 10%. When you sell, obviously, that's going to be proportionate, blah, blah, blah. So that was the plan. So what happened? Heightened interest rates, we know how that comes about, for construction financing with 30% increase in construction costs due to inflation, materials, equipment, and of course, labor, which is next to impossible. 84% of the AHOP units are now no longer eligible under BC Housing's program and income threshold. So they're saying, yeah, all this stuff's going on, and yes, we're the ones that put the rates up, and yes, we created inflation, but we're the lowest in the G7, which means nothing. But anyway, now because of those circumstances, we can no longer offer this because it's not eligible under the pre-inflation circumstances. So originally in 2020, when this was all decided, selling price for these units was going to be $948 a square foot in central Surrey, which is almost $1,000 a foot, is interesting in itself, which again just goes to show the costs involved in getting these projects to the gate, as in the cost of taxes and red tape. Mortgage rates at that time were 5%, and again, these guys were going to take on that 10% portion. Now holding that 10% portion, September 2023, rates are pre-qualifying at 8, and again, the price per square foot of these projects going to market are now $1,098 a square foot. So we were up $150 a square foot just due to the fees. So the first interesting thing about this is that they have a program tied to specific units, which I think is kind of useless. Why not have a program tying to all units? This can be a blanket program. And again, at 10%, I don't really see a huge value. I don't know that there's people, I mean, if there's people just missing the market by 10%, fair enough. But anyway, it's something. But I don't know why they're selecting only these units are going to be applicable to this program instead of saying this program is going to be applicable to all units. That's the first kind of question mark. The other aspect here, the economic conditions have led to the need to, of course, increase sale prices. So as they have yet to begin, they have obviously not got set construction costs. These are floating amounts, floating loans, as we know, and all that sort of stuff. They can't sell to the original numbers because everything's gone up. So now, of course, when they go to market, they're going to be pre-selling at $150 more a foot, which kicks those guys out. But again, the developers, I've just, again, reading the comments to this, and like, you guys have to understand that the developers are there to make money. They're not charities, they're not the city. They may work in conjunction with the city. They're getting financially, I'm not gonna, ravaged, I'll say is the polite word, by the city to be able to build density, build the homes that we all want to appear. But they're not charity cases, nor should they be. And so we can't really blame the developers here, the city coming back and saying these don't work, when the city's in control of the money, the city's in control of the $1 billion BC housing budget annually, and they're choosing not to pull levers with either the banks or let's give this segment of affordable home ownership cheaper interest rates. They have the power to do all of this and make all the rules, yet they're not doing so. So you can't just jump to the developer and say, oh, the developer is just going to go and make more market housing and not the affordable stuff. It's not their fault. And if it doesn't make sense of their equation based on third parties, the city coming in and making it make sense, then they shouldn't be applicable to doing any of this stuff. As a result of the planned units no longer being eligible under AHOP, it is highly challenging for the project to receive construction financing. So again, they need to get higher pricing for everything so they can hit their quotas to get the funding that they're going to need to build. These guys still have all the risk up front. They're taking these loans, hoping these are like your line of credits. These are floating rate loans. So as you get notice that the rates go up, so does their stuff. So they're taking massive risk here in these 2 to 3 year projects. And for 3 towers, that'll probably take up to 6 years. Who has a crystal ball? No one obviously does. So they're taking all the front end risk here. So again, it makes the most sense if they can't secure the best circumstance for themselves. Yeah, I'm sure they'd like to offer assisted living, but they're not going to if it doesn't make financial sense, nor should they, in my opinion. So noted from the city staff, in today's financial and income environment, along with the program's income and affordability criteria, which is obviously as changeable as they want it to be because they are the city, the program is no longer feasible. So what does that mean? So now the affordability component is removed. The developer has gone back to revise and rezone put in a rezoning application for the lot to then turn those 400 units back to market. And then, of course, at that time, they're met with more CACs, as we've talked about, community amenity contribution costs. So the city says, you can't do this. Okay, if I have no other options, I'll change it back. Oh, and don't forget, we also need our taxes on the other side. So they're still taking the money. Why not give up the tax, put that specifically towards the program and keep the program in place? You can start to see how this all turns into lip service with very quick, easy exits for the city not to spend the money, even though they've got these earmarked billions of dollars taken from your tax dollars, my tax dollars, Al's tax dollars, and our children's national debt, which is growing by the other portions. They're just, it's very interesting to see how such little figments of these deals are used for the city to just kind of get out and move on, and we're not doing that anymore. Because obviously 400 units is 400 units. That's a lot of places. I'm assuming they're not all single occupancy, so these are a lot of people that they could assist if they actually wanted to. Again, the city knowing, so there's affordable housing being done here, there's market housing being done here, there's rental housing being done here, so there's the housing crisis, there's the affordability housing crisis, there's the every goddamn crisis here. We need more homes, it comes back to you, and there's a variety of different types of homes that we can look for. So the assisted homes here are being removed. We're adding new market homes, so that's more inventory. That's again a good thing by a different crisis metric. But again, now you've got these guys buying, and then you've got investors. Investors are the bad guy, but of course the investors are the ones that are buying these units and renting them out to you, the guy or girl that wants to live here and can't afford to buy. So you need to, again, then you're going to complain that the rent's too high, which it is, but then you have to go to the affordability thing now being removed again from the city. So the CACs get added. The city knows, again, the developers are not here as charity cases, they are here to make money. Those CAC dollars that are now added to the project are going to be borne by the buyers. They're not gonna, they want their 15% off every project. They're not gonna take 14, 13, or 10 because the city is gonna charge more. That just gets layered on. And when we talked about it a few months ago, that 30 to 40% of every brand new condo is red tape, tax, permitting, city-inflicted pricing, it gets passed on. So the city knowing very well that would have been another nice thing to do for the other side. We want cheaper market units now. We can't, for whatever reason they can justify, get the affordable units out now. Let's get cheaper market units out now. That will in turn sell to the end user as either an actual residence or a cheaper investment property where they will then have a bit more flexibility to maybe, who knows, the market will bore cheaper rent in that building because there's people got in cheaper, they've got more flexibility. All these market things that the government tries to pull away from the market and dictate themselves with their own strings, which never works and only makes things more expensive. Again, there's just a lot of loopholes that they could use to make things cheaper that are not easily taken advantage of. And it always comes back to them extracting more money out of the market, making it more expensive for people to get into the market. So again, the funny thing when doing this, Google affordability crisis or affordable housing crisis. If you just Google housing crisis, the first thing that comes up is, of course, a CBC article. CBC funded $1.39 billion from the federal government last year, your tax dollars, but returned $504 million in ad revenue, so they're running at a net loss of $886 million for the record. Not as bad, actually even worse than Canada Post, if you can believe that. Look up those numbers because that's also very interesting when the city tries to run things. But anyway, why is Canada in a housing crisis? CBC, inflation in Canada is showing no signs of slowing down. Government, cost of rent and mortgages continues to rise because of inflation, because of rates, government, leading to an affordable housing crisis across the country. At the same time, the federal government has increased immigration targets and aimed to bring 500,000 permanent residents here per year until 2025, which is the assumed end of the Trudeau wave that we're seeing. So it's all very obvious and very straightforward and should be very clear by now. on top of all this, again, the BC housing budget is massive, and we talked about that with them giving the city's incentive, the North Vancouver mayor who's complaining because they got from the fund to create some affordable circumstances. They were only offered $3,000 a unit, which clearly does nothing. So it seems they're very timid to spend this money where it actually counts, which is very surprising from a government perspective that they're timid to spend the tax dollars. But in this one case, it seems like they are. That's job number one. Number two, we've got the short-term exemption request. So as we know, we've got the provincial NDP in power currently here. Today, the opposition, the BC United Party. This is the rebrand for the provincial Liberals. The BC United Party. Never forget, they are the Liberals. Introduced several proposed amendments to the BC NDP's bill, including adding an exemption for designated major event accommodation areas, typically downtown, around the convention center, BC Place, the stadium, arenas, to give time-limited exemption for any major event for the Airbnb proposed bylaws. So this is to avoid, as they're saying, a surge of black market rentals and preserve affordable travel options for families, which sounds great. But why add loopholes to, it's again, they layer on bureaucracy. These are the new rules. Then there's a caveat, more layers. They either want the loophole of these homes, whatever they said, 16,000 homes, to ideally be brought back to fair traditional rental market addresses from the short-term addresses that are currently being used. But it's contradictory. We want to put all these rules in place, but we want to give a loophole for this. You give a loophole for that, if you can double or triple your nightly, that just gives the people renting, I just so happen to have a vacant place right now, I'm not allowed to rent it for a short term, but their example, the FIFA World Cup is coming 2026. That's in 2 months. I can only rent my place for $1,900 a month. If I can get $400 a night or $500 or $600 or $700 a night over this time period, it makes more sense. So I'm going to keep that rental off the market so I can maximize at that time and then put the rental on the market after. So you're just giving the market more kind of reasons to not sneak around, but keep inventory off the market, which again, if they really wanted to do it, they can do it, but they're putting forward, pulling back, push forward a little, push back. So it's just, again, timely from last week's video on all the new rules. It's interesting that there's already a plug to get some caveated exemptions out of the way. And number three, the rates. October 25, the rates held today. They held at 5%. So if you are a variable rate mortgage holder, you are safe yet again. As I said last time, as I've been saying a lot of times over the last year, but I think that 5%, which was two meetings ago, they bumped to the 5%. I still believe, even though we typically follow the states, and it sounds like the states is going to continue to move, I still believe with wishful thinking that we are at the top of the rate cycle here, and they will hold for a year, which will hopefully run us into, at best case scenario, mid-2024, but probably Q3 or Q4 mid-2024. But the rates have been held, so your variable rate holders, your line of credit holders, your construction financing holders, dating back to the first little quote up here, all have their rates paused at this point, which is of course a good thing. More so that we're that much closer to the inevitable ticking down. And that's it. Like and subscribe. Thank you for your time yet again. Much appreciated. And I will see you in 7 days.